Okay, so let's start. So sorry for the delay, but there was some technical issues. So my name is Attila Wind. I'm from Northwestern University, and today I'm going to talk about student openness to task-based language teaching. This study is funded by the Research Program for Public Education Development of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, and we are a research group, and we have already presented delivered two presentations. And the members of the research groups are Kata Csizér, who is the head of the research group, Agnes Albert, who also took part in this particular study. We also have László Katona, who delivered his presentation yesterday. Nora Németh-Tarcsai, she's going to talk about problem-based learning today. And we have also Gabriela Berge. She also took part in this particular research, focusing on the German students. And finally, it's me. So what I'm going to talk about today is that I'm going to talk about some background to the study, so the Hungarian context, how task-based language is connected to problem-based learning. Then I'm going to talk about students' openness to problem-based learning, possible antecedents to students' openness to problem-based learning, and then the study that we conducted with my fellow researchers. Okay, so what we have to know about the context. So Hungary is a small landlocked country in Central Europe. In terms of the population, 10 million people live there, and in terms of the language education, so foreign language learning starts in grade 4, so when students are aged 10, and they can choose, the vast majority of students choose English as their second language, and then in grade 7 and 9 they can choose their third foreign language. There's also a compulsory school leaving exam in one foreign language in Hungary. Okay, so in terms of the language knowledge, so foreign language knowledge, Hungary is not doing really well. So we are ranked quite low in terms, as you can see, at the very right end. So Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria. So there is some problem with foreign language teaching. Why is that? So probably one of the reasons is teaching is still often frontal. There's heavy focus on grammar and vocabulary, and still success is based on passing exams. Okay, so probably we can say that task-based language teaching and problem-based learning are pedagogical siblings, so they are related together to each other. Because they both emerge from constructivist educational theory. So basically, instead of passively absorbing information from a lecture, learners construct knowledge actively, interacting with the world. Okay, so I also provide the definition of problem-based learning. So basically, it's a student-centered teaching approach where students learn about a subject by working in groups to solve open-ended real-world problems. Okay, some of the features based on Savory 2015. Students are responsible for their own learning. Problems must be ill-structured, basically meaning that a problem might have different solutions. Also, learning must be integrated from wide range of disciplines. So, for example, when students are given a problem to redesign their canteen, they have to integrate knowledge from probably from interior design, about what food students should eat. So that different subjects integration is important. Also essential is collaboration, so students should collaborate in small groups. Reapplication of the knowledge, of the new knowledge that they learn during self-directed learning, that's also a characteristic feature of problem-based learning, and which is quite rarely happen in problem-based learning, cycles is that closing analysis and self-assessment and peer assessment. So these are the 6 and 7 concepts are usually missing from these problem-based learning cycles in most studies. Okay, so what we can see is that probably there is a nested relationship between task-based language teaching and problem-based learning, in a sense that problem-based learning can be seen as a macro framework, whereas TBLT can be a micro action, in a sense that when they are applied together, a messy problem in a problem-based language learning unit is broken down into series of highly structured communicative tasks in task-based language teaching. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the antecedents to problem-based learning. So what we focused on is the teacher's evolving role. So instead of being a knowledge provider in a problem-based learning environment, teachers have to become facilitators, and this shift encourages independent problem solving and also engagement with real-world language applications. Okay, there's also really so contact is really important in problem-based learning because direct and indirect contact with diverse language speakers also promotes and shapes motivation, and also that's basically bridging the gap between classroom and real-world language use, often through authentic tasks, and that enhances, promotes student linguistic and cultural adaptability. Okay, background knowledge, that was another component that we looked at. So basically, research said that prior knowledge reduces cognitive load and also improves task performance in foreign language learning. And finally, we have lexicogrammatical challenges. So because linguistic competence is foundational for cognitive development and addressing challenges such as English influence on German in the Hungarian context, German's inflicted nature, dialectal variations, insufficient native language knowledge, complex grammar, all these are highly important for effective problem-based learning participation. So what we did, or sort of hypothesized in this study, is that we have 4 direct positive effects. So lexicogrammatical challenges, lack of background knowledge has direct positive links to perceived teacher facilitation. Also perceived teacher facilitation and contact with language outside the classroom have positive links to students' openness to problem-based learning. We also hypothesized 4 negative effects. So students' lexicogrammatical challenges and lack of background knowledge have direct negative effects to contact with the language outside the classroom, and students' lack of background knowledge, students' lexicogrammatical knowledge have negative effects on students' openness to problem-based learning. So that was the structural equation model that we hypothesized, and this is what we tested with Hungarian students. Okay, so when it comes to the research design, so that this quantitative study is based on focus group interviews that we conducted with teachers in Hungary, and based on the analysis we came up with as we have seen the previous links between these constructs. The participants were 431 students. We had English and German sample. The English sample was 15.59, and the German 16.34. The gender was more or less equal, so 114 males and 131 females, and they were 14 different schools, mainly from the capital city, Budapest, but also countryside. Okay, so when designing the questionnaire, so we had these 5 constructs. So the role of the teacher, for example, the one item is provided as an example. So my teacher helps me overcome the difficulties I experience while learning English. Lexicogrammatical difficulties, I find learning the spelling of English words difficult. openness to problem-based learning. I think linking classroom learning with language use outside the classroom is a good thing. The role of background knowledge, I have no experience regarding the topics we cover in our foreign language class. And finally, outside contact with the language. So the foreign language in class is completely different from how it is used outside school. Okay, so we used online questionnaire. So this is how we collected our data. Teachers were contacted first and were asked to share the link with their students, and participation was voluntary. And when it comes to the data analysis, we used the structural equation modeling in JESP, and we checked first the assumptions, and since all these assumptions were met, so we could proceed with the initial model. However, the initial model was not that good. So when it comes to the CFI, TLI indices, they were not that good. So what we had to do is that we removed items whose factor loadings were below 0.40, and then the final model was provided much better fit. Okay, so now let's have a look at, so that's the final model. As we have seen, the initial, so that's from lack of background knowledge to openness problem-based learning, so that link was removed from the final model. Okay, so here are the results. So as we have seen, these were the hypothesized positive relations from 1 to 4, and in red we can see that positive relation, actually the result was it was not a positive relation but a negative one, so lack of background knowledge to perceived teacher facilitation. But the third one was also a positive, so that was a statistically significant relation. When it comes to the negative relations, also we could see that there was some polarity change. So the fourth one, the lexicogrammatical challenges, was actually a positive one in the results. Okay, so now let's see these significant relations, and let's discuss one by one. So when it comes to perceived teacher facilitation, linking to openness to problem-based learning, so what students perceive as a support and facilitation from their teachers leads to openness to problem-based learning in them. Teachers have also probably moved away from these, from their authoritative roles, so they became facilitators. And that's also unsupported by literature, Seidelhofer. The other positive relation was between lack of background knowledge to contact with language outside of the classroom, and then that's the outcome was positive, and we hypothesized a negative link between these two. So the initial expectation was that the lack of schemata might lead to difficulties when tackling real-life language tasks, thus potentially leading to avoidance of contact. But our data showed actually that students lacking background knowledge might be inclined to compensate for this lack by seeking out opportunities for having more contact with the language they are learning. Okay? So now let's see the negative relations. So the lack of background knowledge linking to perceived teacher facilitation, so that was a different polarity. So we hypothesized a positive one, and it actually became negative. Okay, so the initial expectation was that having problems might lead to heavier reliance on teachers and more appreciation of their assistance, since their help is perceived as useful, supported by Barrows, Ellis, and Robinson. But our data showed something different. So sensing a lack of background knowledge about the themes and topics that are addressed in the foreign language classroom is associated with a lack of perceived teacher facilitation. Okay, and finally we have lexicogrammatical challenges linking to openness to problem-based learning. So those learners who struggle with problems stemming from their lexis and vocabulary and grammar of the language they were learning tended to be less open to problem-based learning, and also this is supported by the literature saying that learners who have problems with certain aspects of language or linguistic what they are trying to acquire are less likely to be open to an educational approach which favors open-ended problems and experimentation. Okay, so to end the presentation, so conclusion. So the findings of the structure equation modeling suggest that students' receptiveness to problem-based learning is bolstered by two key components. So having supportive instructors, so basically teachers' facilitation, and also gaining exposure to the target language outside of academic settings, while problems with the linguistic code affect it unfavorably. So here are you can see my references, and thank you for your attention. And I think we still have. Okay, any questions? Do you have connection with the?
Would you back up the slide one more time?
Which one?
The second references one.
Sorry?
There, that's it. Thank you. Thanks, that's all.
Okay. Yes?
You use problem-based teaching for what level do the students have?
They were in secondary school.
Secondary school?
Yes.
Not at your university level?
Not university.
I have never heard about problem-based learning in secondary school. Very seldom.
Yeah,
I heard about with medical students or engineering students and so on.
That's the origin.
So, yeah.
I mean, we looked at whether they would be open to problem-based learning.
Isn't this kind of cognitively challenging for the students and for the teachers? They have to be trained for this.
I guess yes. So teachers should be trained to know, and how they're going to implement it in the classroom. That's another question. So they should be. I mean, students should be at a I would say intermediate level to be able to. But I think it's still possible if they are a bit lower level. So.
Quite challenging for not that interesting. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. I had a question about what if you be collecting like the different set of data? Will you like keep the model intact, or will you add more like antecedents? Because the antecedents, like the lack of grammatical knowledge is probably only one part of foreign language learning. Would you consider like different like skill-based or lack of vocabulary knowledge, etc.?
That's a good idea, I think, to look at other possible antecedents. I mean, vocabulary and grammar, they were, we hypothesized that they are affecting these, students' openness problem to problem-based learning differently, separately, but the structural equation model suggested that we should put together, and that's why we have lexicogrammar challenges as one latent variable. But I would say that probably there are some other factors that might be that it would be interested to look at. Okay, then, thank you very much for